Hello everybody, welcome to Vinepath. Vinepath is a wine club put on through Baco's Wine and Cheese in Boston's Back Bay, Massachusetts. My name is Mariana, I am the wine buyer there, and every month I pick a few wines surrounding a topic in which we explore the world of wine. This month the theme is family ties. We're going to be tasting 5 different wines from 2 families, each with that family member's own personal expression. I thought it was a fun way to take a deeper dive into a certain region or style while learning about traditional wines. Up first, we've got the Pato family. I've been a fan of Pato wines for the last few years, specifically Filipa Pato's elegant wines and Luis Pato's rustic, authentic wines. I was thrilled to hear that Filipa had a sister, Maria, who also made exciting wines. A little bit about the Pato family. They come from a family of farmers for hundreds of years. Most recently, they've been growing grapes in the Bairrada region. So we're in central Portugal, about 20 kilometers from the ocean. And there, the king grape is Baga. So Luis Pato, who will be tasting his red, and the father of Filipa and Maria, he was actually the first to bottle his own grapes that he grew. Because traditionally, that region would grow grapes and then sell them to bigger cooperatives. Luis Pato has an interesting history. He went to school for chemical engineering, which scared his father because he knew eventually Luis would take over the winery and was nervous that he would start making wine out of chemicals. But as Luis describes, quite the opposite happened. The more knowledge he had about chemistry, it actually allowed him to use less chemicals and additives to the wines. He took over the family winery when his father passed away and is now considered the godfather of the grape Baga. We'll taste 2 expressions of Baga, but first let's try his daughter Maria's pet nat. Another month of Vinepath and another pet nat. Look at that foam, it looks almost like a beer. So Maria makes wine under the label Joao Pato. Joao Pato is actually the name of her grandfather, or Luis's father. And she helps her father a lot with his winemaking, works a little more closely with him than Filipa, who has her own operation. I would say her style is very playful. If you look at her on Instagram or any interviews she does, she often wears duck masks. They really play off the family name Pato, meaning duck, hence the label. This pet nat is made with 100% Fernão Pires, a grape also known as Maria Gomes. Not a super common Portuguese grape, but you do see it a lot in central Portugal. This nose is beautiful. I get, off the bat, a lot of salinity, but then there's a beautiful waxy nuttiness that reminds me of toasted hazelnuts. There's grilled pineapple, a little peach, a spicy element like clove. This wine is made in stainless steel but spends 1 year on the lees, where it gets its more yeasty, toasty character. I think this would be an excellent wine to start introducing people to pet nats, and to not always thinking that they are necessarily crazy or funky, because I think this pet nat has a lot of personality, but is very clean and beautiful. I would pair this with some fish and chips. I think with some salty fried cod, it would be amazing. I love that on the side label it says, "Is natural wine your answer if your character is all wrong?" Just goes to show how Maria Pato plays a lot with the meaning of wine and the philosophy behind natural wine. I think the 3 Patos really do care about sustainable practices, if not biodynamic practices, which I think is crucial to modern day winemaking. So Luis Pato's Pato Rebel is a fantastic example of the raw, rustic, beautiful wines that Luis Pato makes. The label explains his personality perfectly. I got to see him speak a few years ago, and the big takeaway I took from it was that he's unapologetic with his style and loves going against the grain in the name of making good wines that are true to his homeland, Bairrada. He takes the Baga grape very seriously, which is what we're drinking right now. There's also a grape Touriga Nacional, which is a very popular Portuguese grape that usually gives off darker fruit, really good acidity and structure, and a little bit of a white grape called Bical, just 1%. But this wine is predominantly Baga. Luis explains Baga as having similarities to Pinot Noir, to Xinomavro from Greece, and to Syrah. He has described it as being as finicky as Pinot Noir and the grape Nebbiolo, because at the end of its ripening season, it tends to absorb water very easily. So if you get a September that is particularly wet, it can be very dangerous for the Baga grape because it can absorb all the water. The fruit loses its concentration, which is what you really want in making interesting wines. But after making many vintages, they're good at knowing when it's time to pick. I get a lot of dried red chilies in this wine, some tamarind, a light smokiness, dried red fruits. The palate has grip. The tannins are a little more than medium. I get similar notes to what I smelled, but more like hibiscus tea. There's a little bit of VA, which is also known as volatile acidity, which in moderation I think is an attribute. It gives it that feel that this is a natural wine with low intervention. Yes, a pure, rustic, beautiful expression of the Baga grape. I would have this hands down with roasted meats, either game like such as duck, some lamb, but you could still have it with a steak. So if Luis Pato showed the world the power and charisma that the Baga grape has, I would say Filipa Pato is showing the finesse and elegance that the grape can have. And though we're focusing on Filipa Pato, her partner in crime is William Wouters. He is her husband and winemaking partner. Filipa also went to school for chemical engineering like her father in the University of Coimbra, but then also fell in love with winemaking and worked harvests all over the world, from Mendoza, Argentina to Margaret River, Australia, and of course with her father in Bairrada. William is actually from Belgium, and he's a sommelier and very talented chef. He was actually the chef for the 2014 Belgian team in the FIFA World Cup. But him and Filipa met, I believe, in a restaurant in Belgium, and of course fell in love amongst food and wine, and they both decided to go to Filipa's hometown in Bairrada and make Baga. They make all kinds of pure expressions of both white and red wines, but they have a post-Quercus line in which the wines are aged in amphora. Post-Quercus referring to after oak, since it's all been aged in amphora or clay. You are getting in this wine the more floral expression of Baga, which is also why it's sometimes compared to the grape Nebbiolo and Pinot Noir. I smell chocolate-covered cherries, dried flowers, orange. There's something almost like a clean soap element that feels very pretty, a little leathery. On the palate, I get a little underripe plum, more cherry, and it feels like a fresh wine, but there's definitely a dustiness, like a minerality that probably comes from the clay. Filipa and William are all about biodynamic practices on their wine in their vineyards. A really cool thing I learned was that in their vineyards they have pigs just roaming around. They get up a little late in the day and they just roam around the vineyards. It's good for fertilization, it's good for pest control. As a reward, she does let them snack on the grapes once in a while, which does affect her yields, but at the end of the day she sees more benefit than not. I would have this wine with a seared pork loin with a tart sauce. I've been eating a lot of plum sauce called tikmali from Georgia. It has that right tart acidity, not too unlike tomatillo sauce, Mexican tomatillo sauce. So even a pork in a tomatillo sauce would be really nice with this. The tartness would pair with the orange notes that I'm finding. Beautiful. Now we go with the Laurent family. We're starting in France. Château Bergey. It starts with Gerard Laurent. He was a successful engineer who wanted to start thinking about his retirement plan and has always had a passion for wine, like a good Frenchman does, and decided to buy Le Bergey in Bordeaux. He definitely had a lot of consultants where he really learned how to make wine, but eventually took over the winemaking. Gerard is a little older now, and the main enologist is Jean-Philippe Fort. The 2022 vintage is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, probably the most typical blend of Bordeaux. The wine is aged for 6 months in French oak. Definitely get that in the background. I instantly get comfort wine with this. I think a lot of people, such as myself, started drinking Bordeaux when first getting into wines because you get a lot of value even at entry-level price points. And I think you get fruit, you get earth, you get the spice of the light oak. I think this one is really well-rounded. A lot of juicy, plummy notes, so much freshness, great acidity. The finish is very herbal. I get like notes of fennel. It almost reminds me of like ouzo. This wine is also biodynamic as a few other ones this month. So up next we go with Gerard's son, Damien. Damien has a winemaking background, very much inspired by his father. He's worked at Château Bergey, meets Lorena in enology school, a woman from Chile. They fall in love and work together and make wine for many years in France. Eventually they got the itch to move to Lorena's home country, Chile, and sure enough they pack everything up and start fresh in Chile. They're in the Valle del Maipo, and in 2008 they plant vines, a lot of traditional French vines that you do see a lot in Chile, and they just start making beautiful, fresh, pure expressions, and they really get a sense of the terroir of the Maipo Valley. We're drinking El Vanidoso. We've actually had their wines before. We had their Petit Verdot sometime last year, and what I love about their wines is it's really good winemaking. You get beautiful, clean expressions, and most of their wines retail for under $20. That has to do with definitely the cheaper cost of labor and the exchange rate, though they do have good farming and labor practices. Nonetheless, we benefit from getting really good value Chilean wine. This Chardonnay is made in stainless steel. You get notes of lemon and little minerality, but overall just a more subdued, clean wine. More of that on the palate. Great acidity. I really feel like anyone that likes white wine would really like this. Damien and Lorena have 2 kids that are now helping them in the vineyards, which is really sweet. A sad thing that's happening in this part of Chile though right now is that there are a lot of wildfires. It happened last year. It's happened this February 2024. My heart breaks for all the people affected. People have died. It's really tragic, and all we can do over here is support the region by drinking Chilean wine. Many winemakers have lost their crop. We hope there's an end to this, but in the meantime we raise a glass in solidarity. Climate change all over the world is a reality that's affecting a lot of historical winemaking regions. Back to this wine. This is the quintessential have a bottle of this in the fridge for any occasion, whether it's you have to add a little to cook with and then drink the rest. Definitely goes with most seafood and chicken dishes. I think this would be really nice with a oven roasted salmon and a veggie side, because it definitely has that Chardonnay weight to it, even though it's not oaky or heavy. I think Damien's influence from coming from Bordeaux, such a classical French winemaking region, you definitely see it here. He definitely wants to be true to the varietals that he's growing to share with the world, and with the label and titles of the wine are playful. He's trying to make them very accessible and easy to drink. I hope everyone enjoyed this month. I thought it was interesting to see winemaking styles within families. Winemaking is very much like art. It's an expression of a region, of a grape, and of a style. If you're not a subscriber of this YouTube channel, please subscribe. Please leave any comments below if you have any questions or comments. Looking forward to next month's Wine Path. Cheers, everybody.